Okay, good morning. This is day 24 of making videos for improving camera presence as a life skill as a human with schizophrenia, and to say a day in the life or thoughts in the life of me as a schizophrenic, and to explain things that are going on that I can decode because I'm at the center of a uh, I'm at the center of a communication operation in which events in the world are part of a cognitive war, and this is cognitive war is something that NATO has talked about. You can read a report by Dr. Francois Cluzel, and he discusses cognitive war. Okay, so today I was going to talk about something that happened the other day. One of my videos, I was making an annoying clicking noise like this with the pen, and it was a nervous thing that I was doing as I was holding the pen. And later that night on the news, there were people making that clicking noise on the news as they were talking about the fire raging here. And that was an indicator to me, like, oh, we're watching you and we know what you're talking about. And it's probably some sort of thing where it's like a fun game. Like, did you see the video of that weird schizophrenic guy? Uh, of only people that don't. So a lot of people know it's not that weird, but anyways, so the news was copying me on the news with this clicking noise, and that's the mirrored biofeedback aspect of reality. That was to let me know that what they were saying on the news was a directive to me and stuff. So I don't really know if people want me to make these videos or not. I started making them. They started the fire. If you go back to all the way back to like day 7 to day 13 to day 19 to day all the way through those days or whatever, it seems like the fire is maybe related to my talking in addition to the eating or whatever. So I think the eating is a cover. They like to start. They have a plan. It's part of a plan that they're gonna go through, and they're gonna do something. So potentially they're trying to discredit me or do something so big and crazy that people are gonna hate me and stuff like that. So whatever. Uh, so that's the clicking noise on the news that was in copying me here. And they didn't do it any other time, so they just did it that time. They like to go and stuff when they talk and stuff like that, because I go Okay, so I started thinking like this incident, like if you think intertemporally, is this kind of like a Ragnarok going on in California? Because they like to call me Rock or Rocky, and they like to make fun because like Standing Rock a few years ago was because I thought to myself, if I stand up, I'll burn more calories and I'll become like a rock, like rock hard. At the time, I wanted to have rock hard abs or something, and that's stupid. But it's like the people doing this are not very smart people. Like they think burning people out of their homes is gonna result in better housing situation for everybody else. And I'm not seeing it, but maybe I don't know. Hans Berger. Okay, so I'll do that in a second. All right, so I had talked about the fact that maybe these fires could be started from a laser, and Targeted Justice discussed in their post yesterday that they believe that uh, lasers from Colorado are what start the fires in California and Hawaii. And I have no way of knowing this, and I'm a little suspicious when somebody's like a know-it-all. But they might have people positioned to know this thing. They might actually do know, but I don't know. They're right about some other things that are going on. So, uh, you know, uh, one thing I can say is that I'm fairly certain there's a human element to how these fires start. And the fact of the matter is, they usually start right around the time I'm gonna eat something, or they start the fires and then they threaten me. We'll make the fire go out of control if you eat too much. Or so when every time I eat, they start off like, here's a fire. You want it to be under control, so eat. It's like a threatening. It's like a terrorist threatening thing, and it's like I say, they coordinate it with my eating to put blame on me, but like they really want to burn people out of the homes. That's why they start the fires. Okay, and so I don't know if it's starting from laser. I don't. I just know there's a human element to how the fires start, and I know that uh, because I'm the schizophrenic in the middle being communicated with. Uh, anyway, so Targeted Injustice called to shut down Homeland Security, and I am not for shutting down Homeland Security because that it seems like a bizarre tack to take when you have a potentially domestic operation or intergalactic or off-world or international operation going on. People think off-world. How could you say that? A laser can shoot from 10 million miles away and start a fire on the Earth. So you have to think about these things because that's the world we're living in. You can, I mean, people want to believe what they want to believe, but the fact is, you can shoot a laser from 10 million miles away on Earth, and someone with high technology could pinpoint it on a certain section of the Earth and start a fire. So, the shadow surveillance is how these things happen, and not being out in the open with the shadow surveillance allows off-world, domestic, or international operations to take place and not be subject to public scrutiny or oversight. And I'm just saying, as someone who experiences these abuses, that they should be brought out into the light. And I mean, this is what I say in my book. Like, surveillance is the way of the world, and we are kidding ourselves if we think we're pretending there's no surveillance. But groups are surveilling the earth, and they're enacting terroristic things and all kinds of stuff like that. So uh, we should be monitoring that as a public and as a democracy, and we should have control over it. So that's what I think. And I had discussed earlier another time that I thought, like, my sense was that something was afoot with the Palisades fire that was related to potentially what America and Israel did in the Middle East over the last decade or whatever, or even longer. And uh, it's as it turns out, I was researching, and there's 5 to 10,000. I was reading an article, and there was 5 to 10,000 Jewish people in Palisades. So, uh, you know, it's a little suspicious that the fire started. When they first announced the fire department called it a suspicious fire. I don't know if they're gonna follow up with that, but sometimes they like to leak these things. Like, oh, they leak it out, so they create the stir, and then they create the conspiracy theory controversy. Like, oh, they leak all these things out, and then the people take it up as a conspiracy theory, and then it just takes on weird little lives of their own, and people have like assured assured things like, and then there's the criticism, don't call it a conspiracy theory, and it goes into this like weird 9/11 truth thing that just, personally, I think 9/11 truth was an inside operation, and I'm skeptical. I should say I'm skeptical that 9/11 truth itself was an inside operation. Like it was part of the whole operation. It was part of a big cognitive war that NATO now talks about, and I think it, it was built into the operation, perhaps. And I can't say it for sure, but it feels that way to me. Like when I read it, it's like almost like a operation where there's an exploration of reason, and people who are knowledgeable of what's going on in the government know, okay, the story is obviously not real, and then it becomes like a test. Will you tell the truth? Will you not tell the truth? And stuff like that. And it becomes like a test in reason. Like, are you gonna believe when you know the science is not there for something? Are you gonna believe this what your knowledge of science, or are you gonna believe the official story of the science? And it's perhaps related to the Kennedy assassination and people trying to talk about that. And maybe it was always a way to undermine the idea of governance, and by people that don't like governance, anarchists, libertarians, and people who have been wronged by the government decide, that's it, no more government. I've been wronged by the government, no more government. And, you never know. Like I say, when you have a lot of duplicity and manipulation, you never know what is taking place. Potentially somebody could turn the axe on themselves and then say, hey, look at what that group B did, or even have like an undercurrent of like suspicion in society, like, yeah, I think it was group B, I think it was group B, and then they use the suspicion to their advantage. So you never know. It's just, but we have to shine the light on these things and realize that there are lasers that can start fires. Uh, the fact the fact of the matter is, I get voices, and Dr. Paul Batcho has said that, and there's plenty of things I've discussed already on here that discuss that voices themselves are an indicator that I'm subject to a weapon system. So I'm subject to a military operation that's trying to inflict schizophrenia on me. And once you know that, then you realize, well, maybe uh, some of the other things I'm saying should be looked at. And I really do think somebody should cut some authority in the world, a UN or somebody like that, should come in and ask me questions, and I could give them information about how I've been communicated with and what I have to say. But that probably will never happen. I'll probably be crazy my whole life, or be dubbed crazy my whole life. And anyways, so Dr. Paul Batcho his security Q clearance in the United States government, and he was a scientist, and he said that cell towers were responsible for giving off frequencies that put voices in people's heads, and cell towers are tied into a satellite network and stuff like that. And so so cell towers, people have discussed like knocking down cell towers, and I'm not for that, but uh, I can understand why somebody, if they're receiving messages, would want to go knock those towers down, because they're in some one application of those towers, apparently, according to Paul Baccio, is that they're being weaponized to send voices in people's heads and stuff like that. So, and sometimes these voices can be turned weaponized form to drive someone crazy and insane. And that gets into Hans Berger. I had discussed Hans Berger was originally one of the guys that wanted to research telepathy, and he's one of his researches a big reason why we have synthetic telepathy today. And he apparently, I was reading in my book, died of suicide. And that is very suspicious that, once you know the targeted individual program and you realize schizophrenic itself, that there's a lot of suicide involved, and perhaps it is a war to make people commit suicide. And this is something that has been discussed in a lot of various forums. And so I'll just talk about that. And I'm not in danger of that myself. Okay. Goodbye.